A list of about 29 different requirements. It's quite long. Let's explain. A professional service is a business that has an office-like setting, but still sees customers from the outside world. So a good way to describe that, like you said, Jake, somewhere where you get your taxes done, maybe an attorney's office. Now, as I mentioned, they have a list of 29 requirements they have to meet in order to be open. They range from how they should train employees to what inside the office should look like and what should happen if someone gets sick. Let's talk about training real quickly. So it's required that employees are trained on the protocols for the company, including sanitation and social distancing protocols. If the office requirements, those include developing a comprehensive coronavirus control plan. They also should have safety information visible for employees. Furniture, you should rearrange it in order to promote social distancing, and then face shields or sneeze guards should be placed throughout the work site. Now, as for the sick employee plan, office workers should take their temperature at home before work every single day. And they say if your temperature is higher than 100.4 degrees, you should stay home. If you develop symptoms, they expect that you let your employer know, and then that employer is to contact anyone that employee may have had contact with. But keep in mind, they should keep that person's identity confidential. Now, again, I mentioned there are 29 requirements. To put this into perspective, I only listed 8 of them right there. So there are a long list of things businesses are going to have to do. That being said, every business is supposed to have a COVID-19 supervisor. That is someone who is an expert on these requirements and can help enforce them in the workplace. They're now saying if businesses have questions about what to do moving forward, they should reach out to the state's Business Response Center. Live in Linwood, Callie Greenberg, King 5 News.